All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's so nice to see you here. Welcome to AMADC's educational webinar, Stop Believing, Break Free from Marketing Nonsense, and Learn What Works. What a fun topic, what a fun title. We're so glad you're here with us today. To all of our first-time attendees, welcome. You chose a great webinar to kick things off with. Lee is fantastic. And to all of our AMADC members on the line, a big shout out to all of you guys. We're always so happy to see you joining us for our community events as we build our professional skills together. So welcome everyone. We're happy to have everyone here today. My name is Laura Genovese, and I'm the VP of Educational Programming for AMADC. And we are very excited to be hosting this webinar today with one of our longtime friends, Dr. Lee George. She has been speaking for AMADC for years, and she's never disappoints. She's always fantastic. So I'm so excited for you guys to be here with her today. Before we kick things off, I'm going to go through a few housekeeping items. We're going to ask everyone to be on mute during the presentation, just to be sure we don't have any background noise interrupting the speaker. Feel free to submit your questions in the chat. I will be keeping an eye on the questions, and we're also going to be having time at the end to do Q&A. So we'll certainly have time to address any of the questions that come up. And just for a reference, we'll be sending a recording of the presentation after the session. So you'll have that to be able to replay in the future for your reference. So I'm very excited to get to welcome Dr. Lee George today as our speaker. Lee is the founder of Freedom, a brand and marketing strategy consultancy. She cuts through the crap so you can get at the ideas, approaches, and actions that are most important for your brand. Whether that's freeing you from the tyranny of the persona, helping you dodge bland brand stories, or extricating you from cardboard cutout marketing strategies that please no one, including your customers. She's always got you. And as one of the few people on the planet with a PhD in branding, she has the credentials to back it all up. So Lee, thank you so much for being here. Welcome. Take it away.
Thank you for having me. It looks like there are a few people in the waiting room. Okay, great. Welcome, everyone. I am so excited to be with you and joining AMADC again this year. I always love speaking to y'all. And today I'm here to talk to you about stopping.
I'm in a webinar.
Oh, all right. I got my get up on.
Sorry, Lee, I accidentally muted you when I was trying to mute the other people. Are you able to unmute?
Okay.
Oh, sorry about that.
That's okay. Okay. We literally did stop. So I'm here to talk to you about stopping, not that kind of stopping. But I would like you to just stop, to take a deep breath in, let it out, and just stop. Let go of all those approaches to marketing that we've been told to use, we've been expected to use because we're just told that's the way it is. Break free from these old traditional ways of working that just aren't working anymore. So what I'd like us to do is to basically to call BS on these traditional ways of working. And to do that, I want to summon Charlie Kale. And I don't know if any of you are big fans of Natasha Lyonne. I am a huge fan of hers. She stars in a show called Poker Face, and her character is called Charlie Kale. And Charlie has this amazing superpower. So her superpower is that if she's talking to someone and they are not telling the truth, it might be a white lie, it could be a whopper of a lie, our inner Charlie Kale today and to call BS on ways of working in marketing that are no longer working for us. And the first one I would like to address are personas. So I'm sure all of you use personas. It's become incredibly standard as a way to make sense of audiences. And in fact, I think the intention behind personas is really good, right? It's the idea is we take this mounds of quantitative information that we are collecting and we make sense of it as a way to understand our audiences better, because no matter what you do, whatever your role is, whether you work on SEO or email or social media or paid media or copywriting or creative, whatever you do in an organization, you have to understand your audience. So personas have been a great way to begin to do that. And they've really become so omniscient in a sense, so kind of baked into our everyday lives as marketers, that they've in fact been built into the very technology that we use. So if you think about your marketing automation system and how personas have been built into that technology, or your content management system, or even stock photography is really based on this idea of personas. So it's everywhere. It's really hard to escape them. They're kind of the de facto way that we use to make sense of audiences. But I'm here to say to you today that they actually hurt us more than they help. And I want to go through several reasons why. So the first reason is that they are very slippery. So tell me if this scenario sounds familiar. You are working on some personas, 2 to 3. You're really excited. You've done all of this research. You've distilled it down to kind of key points and attributes. You've named your persona. You've got a picture. You've laid it out beautifully in your template. You're very excited. You go to a meeting to share it with the team. You present your personas. And Rob says, Lee, these are great. I can tell that you spent a lot of time and effort on them. They're incredibly thorough. I think you've done a great job. But they led me to think about this other role that I think is really important in terms of our target audience. And I really think we need an additional persona to account for that role as well. And you say, okay, sure, yeah, I can develop another persona. And then Linda says, Rob, that's a really good point. I agree, we do need a persona for that role. And that caused me to think about this other person that hasn't been accounted for in our personas. And I really think we need an additional persona for that person as well. And then Yolanda says, yeah, Linda and Rob, those are really good points. Those are important audiences. And it led me to think, in my group, we're always talking about this other audience that we haven't even mentioned and isn't even accounted for in these personas. So I think we need to create a persona for that person as well. And before you know it, what started as 2 or 3 personas is now exploded into 5, 7, 12, 15. It never stops, because I guarantee you there's always someone in your organization that says, well, what about this kind of person? Or what about that kind of person? So what started out as a tool to make our lives easier and make our marketing more effective because we had greater insight into the people we were trying to reach, quickly becomes not only does the personas proliferate, but they just become unmanageable to the extent that we can't even use them anymore. The next reason I think it's time to call BS on personas is that they make some assumptions around shared demographics. And the assumptions they make is that these shared demographics are meaningful. So in every persona template that you'll see, there are categories for different kinds of attributes of these people. So personas are literally based on individual attributes in an attempt to create an identity. But the problem is that these individual attributes, which are kind of categories, otherwise known as demographics, like age, race, sex, income, all of those things, are basically kind of made up. There's nothing about being the same age that means that we share certain beliefs or make decisions the same or any of those things. They're just an arbitrary way to group people. We could also group people by ear shape or nose size or ankle shape, anything. Those are just arbitrary. Just because people share certain personal attributes does not mean that we share the same beliefs, the same goals, make decisions the same. So there are these assumptions that are built into the way we put together personas. And I think nothing speaks to this more than this image of now King Charles and Ozzy Osbourne. You may have seen on social media, it's been circulating for a while. It kind of keeps popping up in my feed. And so here are two guys. If you covered up the picture, they are identical in terms of their demographics. They're, boomer white guys, both wealthy, both self-employed. They were raised in London. They travel the world. They like the finer things in life. They have children. They've been married, divorced, remarried. So you're thinking, oh, I can just create one persona because these are all the same. These are common traits that these two people share. But because we exist in the world and we know who these people are, we know for a fact that they are vastly different individuals that have very different images of their role in the world, what they want their world to be, their view of their goals, what they want to achieve, all of those things. So just because they share the same demographics does not mean that other things about them are the same. So I call BS because personas make these assumptions that aren't necessarily true. And this becomes a real problem because once you start to assume that because of people's personal attributes that they behave a certain way, that is really the definition of bias. You are bringing your own assumptions, your own biases to people based on physical characteristics or other individual attributes that they share. And of course, when you do that, that creates stereotypes, which can be harmful. And I came across this image on Twitter recently that I think just does a great job dramatizing how wrong personas can be and the kind of implicit bias that is built into them. So you've got what I think is a really joyful image of this older lady and what looks to be a younger guy. They're wearing the same coat and they're kind of passing each other on the sidewalk and kind of laughing that they both are wearing the same thing. Well, if you're creating personas built around individual attributes, you wouldn't be able to account for the fact that here are two people who look very different, who are interested in the same thing. So it just kind of underscores the fact that just because people share individual attributes or don't, doesn't mean they have the same buying behavior. And then the fourth reason I want to call BS on personas is that intersectionality is real. So we contain multitudes, right? I am not just a business owner or a speaker or a collaborator. I'm also a mom, I'm a sister, I'm a friend, I'm in various fandoms. I have this multiplicity of myself. And what personas do is they basically flatten people and create these one-dimensional pictures of them, when we know that people have multiple parts of themselves. And I think this post that I saw on Twitter really speaks to that, which is, you know, this person saying, how is this the same person? Like, that's so crazy to me. And well, it shouldn't be crazy, because this is Billie Eilish, and Billie Eilish can feel like on Easter that she wants to wear a very frilly, floral, uber feminine dress. And then at other times, she wants really kind of baggy, comfortable, dark clothes, because we contain multitudes. Intersectionality is real. We have different desires and dreams based on the circumstance. There's just, we don't function the same way under all conditions at all times. And personas try to make us believe that we do. And finally, why I want to call BS on personas is that they decontextualize decision making. So in the same way that personas flatten the multitude of us into these kind of one-dimensional limited views of us, it also decontextualizes decision making. And I had this kind of epiphany the other day where it occurred to me that the way personas try to make sense of audiences are very much the same way that museums make sense of cultural artifacts that they display. So, you know, in the 18th century, early 19th century, as modern museums were being built, mostly white people would go to other countries, take objects, artifacts from a specific culture, from a specific community, wrest them out of those contexts, and basically put them in a white box that kind of cut out all of the very culturally specific practices that gave those objects meaning, and presented them as though we can just make sense of them on their own as they are presented in this box. And that's kind of what personas do to our audience. We strip them from the specific, we strip people from the specific contexts that really shape the way decisions get made, and we present them as though they exist in this kind of white box, in this kind of perfectly controlled environment in which people are making decisions the same way all the time. And that's just not how decision making works. So at this point, I'm sure you're saying, okay, Lee, I use personas every day. It's what I use to make sense of my audience. If they are not going to work, what can I use instead? So let's examine that. And to begin to think about an alternate way to make sense of our audiences and their behavior, their goals, I want to start with this story, this experience that I had. So I was in my local neighborhood grocery store and I came across this wine display, and I was floored. I literally stopped in my tracks. And I read "Rough Day When You Just Can't." And what struck me as so incredible about this wine display is that it was a completely different way of selling wine than I had ever seen before. So, you know, if any of you are wine drinkers, and if you go to a store to get wine, typically what you will see is the wine is organized maybe by country or region. It might be organized by grape. Underneath each bottle, it might give you some description, but the description focuses on things that may or may not make sense to you, things like mouthfeel or tannin or acid. And basically what the winemakers are doing is they are talking to you in the language of wine. They're trying to use the language of wine to market to you. But if you don't know the language of wine, and all you want is a bottle of wine that's going to taste good at dinner, or a bottle of wine that you can have with a friend while you're having a great conversation. None of this stuff is relevant. Do you really care about the tannins or, all of these other specialized lingo that can make you feel really, quite honestly, kind of like an idiot because you may not understand this. And what makes rough days different is instead of using the language of wine to talk to me, it was using my language. Rough day when you just can't. So you can imagine at work, you finish one project to only have 4 other ones appear at your desk. Your kid's school has called and said that your daughter is sick, so you have to leave work and come pick her up unexpectedly. You get home and suddenly there's, a slight plumbing problem with your sink. It won't stop dripping. And you're just like, I just need a moment. I just want something where I can kind of feel relaxed, feel good without all these pressures on me. Rough day when you just can't. The wine is using my language to sell me on the wine. And so what this example of rough day begins to suggest to us is a different way of making sense of our customers and our audiences, that instead of focusing on trying to define individuals by focusing on personal attributes, is to understand our audience by focusing on the context around the decision that they're trying to make in relation to what we're selling. And that approach is called job to be done. So job to be done is an approach that believes that, we don't buy things because we need them. We buy things because we are hiring them for a job. So in the case of Rough Day Wines, we're hiring them to bring us some relief after a long day. That is the job that wine is doing. And so it's marketing to us in that way. So job to be done, unlike a persona, really focuses on that specific context and need around the purchase decision. And unlike a persona, which forces you to fill out kind of all of these different parts, and you have to gather all sorts of different information, a lot of which may not even be relevant, like media habits, for example, or background. The job to be done focuses on 2 specific pieces of information that are crucial to defining the job. One is, what is your audience struggling with now? What is holding them back? And what are they trying to get to? How will life be better when they have the right solution? What is the ideal state or the progress that they're trying to make, but can't because something is standing in their way? You put those 2 things together and you have the job to be done. So job to be done, it's easy to oversimplify it because that equation is so simple. So I want to make sure that it's clear that a job to be done isn't a simple task. And it's not something that the brand defines. The job to be done is not, I need a B2B professional services solution. A job to be done is based on the audience and what they're struggling with. So I love giving examples. I think especially when you're learning something new, it's helpful to have examples. So that's why I was very disappointed when I came across an article online from the Harvard Business School online promising examples of jobs to be done. So what they have done is not show actual examples of jobs to be done, but they show jobs to be done as tasks. So I want to point those out to differentiate for you what is a job to be done and what is not. So they say that for Zoom, the job to be done is connecting remote workers. And I am pretty sure that none of you wake up in the morning and think, wow, I cannot wait to connect with other remote workers today. That is not what we're thinking. That is not the value that Zoom has for us. what that is, what Harvard Business School is actually describing is the actual, what the technology does. It doesn't matter if you're talking about Zoom or Google Meet or any kind of video conferencing solutions. They all connect remote workers. That is not a job to be done. That describes what the product or the service actually does. It's literally kind of the mission of Zoom. So as you're defining the job to be done, make sure you are not describing what your product does at a functional level. You want to think about instead of that, you want to think about what is the goal that my audience is trying to achieve by using my product? What is my audience able to do after using my product or service that they weren't able to do before? So all of these other examples are additional examples of how job to be done was translated or understood as what the product actually does. So for example, PayPal, providing a secure way to make online payments. Again, that is describing what that technology does. It's not looking at it through the customer's eyes, because again, I guarantee you, when we're shopping online, what we're not thinking is, man, I really wish I had a secure way to pay this company. That's really the last thing that's on our mind. DoorDash, the same thing, delivering food safely and conveniently. I know that when I use DoorDash, that is not the goal that I am trying to achieve. That is not anywhere. I mean, that's part of what helps me get to my goal, but it's definitely not what's important to me as a customer. And the most disappointing of Harvard Business School's example is Nike. They say Nike's job to be done is serving the needs of runners. And to that, I would ask them, have you seen any Nike ad ever? Because I'm pretty sure that the job to be done is just do it, right? The whole Nike brand is based on the belief that anybody can be an athlete, that you don't have to be a kind of professional record-setting runner or athlete to be great. Anyone can do that. And that's really the job to be done. So as you're working with job to be done, make sure you're not just describing what your product or service or cause is, but you're really looking at your product or service through your lens. I often say, instead of, companies often will look at customers through the lens of their business, which is what these examples do. And instead, you want to look at your business through the lens of your customers. And so to help you kind of understand what I'm saying here and what a job to be done is versus a simple description of what a product and service does, is you want to push yourself to think beyond just the task at hand, what your product does, to a vision of transformation. How will someone's life be transformed by using your product? So for example, if we use like Lyft or Uber, the task at hand is transformation, right? What they do functionally is get people from A to B, but the job to be done might be freedom of movement. I want to be able to go anywhere at any time. Help me do that. That is looking at Uber or any ride sharing company through my lens versus through the lens of business. If we look at something like a Spotify, the task, what it functionally does is allow me to listen to music. But my job to be done for Spotify may be, I want to be able to have a party anywhere. I want to turn wherever I am into a party. That might be the job to be done. If you're a nonprofit, the task at hand that you would want from funders and supporters is to support your cause. But that is not a job to be done, because obviously every nonprofit wants that. It's not differentiating. The job to be done might be, I want to belong to a community where I can do something that I feel is important and where I feel like I can have an impact. So you can see we're moving from thinking in a very narrow way about what a product service does that really isn't different from any kind of competitor in that space, to thinking about your business from your customer's perspective through the lens of transformation, and how kind of what goal are they aiming to achieve by using your product. So another example from the world of B2B is clarifying the complex. I guarantee you, if you go to any B2B technology company website, some variant of that language will be there. But the job to be done from the customer's perspective may be sleeping well at night, for example. So push yourself to think not just in terms of what your product does, but the transformation that you're able to help your customer achieve. So just to sum up, the difference between a persona and a jobs to be done. A persona is identity-based. It's based on personal attributes, which, as we talked about, lead to all sorts of problems, whereas the job to be done is context-based. So it's looking specifically at what someone is trying to achieve within certain constraints, within a certain context. Personas are very biased because they make certain judgments based on shared demographics, versus a job to be done is innately inclusive. It's not saying that you have to look a certain way or be a certain age or anything. Anyone can share a job to be done. And then finally, personas, it's really hard to limit them. There's always another one that pops up. So you have these ever escalating audience groups that you have to account for. Whereas a job to be done gives you a single crystal clear definition that is very simple. And that simplicity helps you make sure that it is internalized across the organization. You don't have to worry about every different group in your company juggling 15 different personas. Everyone can be on the same page, sharing the same job to be done, so that no matter if they're working on product or marketing or PR or whatever it is, that you're all kind of focused on the same goal. So now that we understand what a job to be done is, I want to talk a little bit about how to get the information and insight that you need to kind of put those two parts together, what someone's struggling with and where they're trying to get to. And I think there is no right way to do this. And in fact, a lot of the sources that you use for personas, you can use for job to be done. My favorite and kind of first choice are one-on-one in-depth interviews, whether they're in person or online, because when you do that, you're able to really dig deep, ask follow-up questions to make sure that you're getting all the information you need. The downside of those is that they can take a lot of time and they can be expensive. So another option is just to use secondary research. So what I like to do is try to find interviews with the kinds of people that I imagine my customers to be, or people who are kind of buying or using the sorts of products or services I sell, and try to find the information I need through those interviews. So reading about how they think, how they make decisions, those sorts of things, or even just secondary research on the category in general. The other area that I find a wealth of information is in the comment section of articles. So, you know, after you've read the article, what's so wonderful about the comments is people don't leave a comment unless they feel strongly, either really positive or really negative. So you can really see the two ends of the spectrum about the type of product or the situation that you're researching, and get a lot of good insights from that as well. I'm sure that many of you are already starting to experiment or use AI, chat, GPT, or other AI technology. It's, you know, it's not perfect. It's going to return kind of the most obvious, but if it is fun to kind of do some role playing and structure prompts that ask AI to imagine itself as this kind of person making this kind of decision, and to kind of see what it comes back with, ask it more questions. So I've even started to incorporate that as a way to get even kind of the obvious information out of the way, and to help just spur deeper thinking on my part. And I think even though the research sources that you're going to for a job to be done may be the same or similar to persona, the questions that you're going to ask are very different, because the kinds of information that you need are different. So to understand the context, you're going to want to think about things like, what are people struggling with? Why are they even looking to buy something in the first place? What process did they take? How are they evaluating the options? So why are certain solutions, do they feel good about? And why do certain solutions they just dismiss out of hand? You want to understand what a win looks like and why. So why, when they come upon a solution that they think is the right one, why do they think that is? And then also just the feelings around their decisions and actions. So to get to that information, the kinds of questions that you need to ask are things like, think back to a time when you bought a coffee mug, or when you gave money to a cause, or when your organization needed to buy a new, hire a new attorney, or buy a new kind of technology. And just get them to describe that scenario, because that helps you understand kind of what they were struggling with, the steps they took, all of that information that's really important to understanding the job to be done. And then, as they're talking, you can include some prompts that to help them get to information if they haven't just automatically shared that with you. So things like, what prompted your search? What options did you consider? Why did you pick one option or go with one company over another? And then kind of two approaches that I used to really dig into the information and get behind their initial answers to really understand their motivations. And one is just, tell me more about that. When you shared information about your search, you seemed really frustrated about this part. Is that true? And can you tell me more about that? Why were you frustrated? And then the other approach is the 5 whys. So just ask why over and over again, which I think can sound kind of obnoxious at face value. But if you just keep, asking, why were you frustrated? Why did that make you frustrated? What was it about that made you frustrated? So continuing to probe so that you can really understand and dig into the motivations, because that will help you understand the struggle and where they're trying to get to. So we talked about personas, why we need to call BS on personas. Now I want to move to another tool that we as marketers use all the time, which is message frameworks. So if personas help us understand our audience, message frameworks help us organize our thinking so we know what messages to communicate to our audiences. So I'm sure you've all used a content framework like this. It typically has kind of the target audiences. You can see there are multiple audiences. Clearly, this was based on a persona. You've got customer needs. And then you find that it quickly moves away to a focus on the customer to focus on the company or product. So tagline, subhead, positioning statement, differentiating messages, key benefits, features. So part of the problem with these current frameworks and why they sabotage our messaging is it focuses too much on the product and not enough on the customer. And what happens when we do that is it creates what I like to call bland branding. So you've got this example. that I found on Twitter. So someone saw a homepage with the for SaaS, software as a service, with the headline, "Powerful software that delivers results." What? I mean, doesn't every SaaS platform do that? That doesn't tell me why I should care about your offering. It's kind of literally what Harvard Business School was describing as the as job to be done. It doesn't really help me as a customer understand why I should buy from you. And to me, this is very reminiscent of what happens when you go to a social event, maybe a business networking event, and you're by yourself. You just want to be talking to someone, so you don't feel awkward. So you're exciting. Someone comes up, like, great, I don't have to sit here by myself with my glass of wine. You start talking, and suddenly this other person hasn't asked you any questions. All they're doing is talking about themselves, their great company, their great product, their title, their great life, all of these things. And what's your response? You're like looking around the room, looking for the exits. How can I get out of this conversation? Because it's horrible. No one wants to, that you can't have a conversation if one person, all they're doing is talking about themselves. And that is what happens when you use these kinds of messaging frameworks, is it forces you as a brand to just talk about yourself. So another example is what I'll call proudly vague. So this is one from an airport. So presumably this company, Total Energy, spent a lot of money on the media buy to get this creative in an airport. So like, it's a big investment. And the creative that they come up with for this is Total Energies, the company for all energies. I mean, I don't even know what that means. It is so vague. As a potential customer, I don't even know what I'm buying. And the sad thing is about this to me is I don't blame the marketing team that came up with this creative, because I'm pretty sure what happened was they had an amazing idea. They came to the meeting to share with the executives, and each of the executives had a problem. And after much bickering and back and forth, the creative was decided by committee. And as a result, this is what you got, which is a lot of words that say nothing. And, I want you to know that this is something that happens it can happen at any company with any brand. Just because you are small and don't have a big budget doesn't mean that you are necessarily defaulting to this. You look at Audi, which is a global brand with a huge marketing team, a massive budget. And this is an ad that was shared on LinkedIn, actually. Embrace what's next. Season of Audi. I don't know what this means. I don't know why I should buy an Audi. I don't know why I should buy an Audi over another kind of car. And as George Tannenbaum said, is that, like, we need a new word for this. I call it blanding. I like his idea of non-tent, because it's content that just says nothing. So, how do we get away from this sort of a framework that forces us to talk about ourselves, because literally that's the way the framework is kind of put together. And I came upon this example. And so it was actually in a newspaper. So I was looking through the newspaper. I came upon this ad, and I see the headline, "Vacation in your own backyard." And I thought, yes, please sign me up. This sounds like amazing. I would love to do that. I can take a vacation. I don't even need to leave my house. Tell me more. I love this. And then I kept reading. Exceptional fabrics that hold up to, no. I don't care about the fabrics. Can we get back to vacation? I want to talk about how I get a vacation in my backyard. And then I kept reading. Long lasting, weather resistant, easy to clean. No, I am on vacation. I will do no cleaning. I won't be doing any cleaning. I'm on vacation. And so this is an example of an ad that, it showed so much promise. Vacation in your own backyard, that is an amazing job to be done for patio furniture. But then what I think happened was you got, maybe the clients or someone else involved saying, wait a second, we've got to talk about the products because that's what we're here to sell. And our products are wonderful. So we need to mention that in our ads. And I understand that impulse, as a company, you care deeply about your products and services or causes. You've worked hard on them. You think they're great. You want to share that enthusiasm. But the problem is that customers don't care. And this is a really brutal, hard truth. But it's true, because if we take our marketing hats off and put on our customer hats, we know this for a fact, we don't care about the product. What we care about is us and our goals. So vacation in your own backyard, that is something that resonates deeply with me. The other kind of features of the product are less important, and we can get to that far down the road. And so that's another reason why the current messaging frameworks don't work, because they focus too much on information that is not top of mind for customers. They focus too much on products, features, and benefits versus on the transformation that I will be able to get with your product, unlike other products. So if the current marketing frameworks don't work, if they result in bland branding, or even kind of create this gap between us and our customers, because we're sitting here talking about ourselves and our customers are like, what's in it for me? What can we use instead? So I want to walk you through a framework which is based on a narrative. So it's a story, and it's a simple 4-message framework. So it's something that's very easy to remember, unlike that kind of overly complicated messaging framework, which is typically used. And so to help me walk through this framework with you, I have enlisted Taylor Swift and the cast of her Bejeweled video. I hope we have some Swifties here. I have become somewhat obsessed and have been watching the live streams of her Eras tour every weekend. So this narrative framework for messaging starts off with your audience. What is the challenge that they face? Why is it important? What is the situation and its consequences? So why this is so effective is you are immediately signaling to people, I hear you, I see you, I get what is happening, and I recognize you. That creates an instant emotional connection in a way that just talking about your products and services does not. And so in Taylor Swift's case, it's, I am a servant. I will not be able to go to the ball. My life is horrible. The next message is, what's your perspective? What do you believe about the situation? And in Taylor Swift's case, my perspective is she should not be in indentured servitude. She should be out shimmering and shining because she is Taylor Swift. The third message is, what's your approach? So you realize you don't even start talking to yourself about yourself until the third message. What is it that you do to help your audience? How is your approach different? And in this case, I have a special pocket watch that will end her exile at midnight. And finally, the last message, what's your impact? What's the transformation that you make possible? Because of the magic pocket watch, Taylor goes to the ball, wins, and now owns the castle. So just to recap, there are four simple messages. They're very easy to remember, which means that they're not going to live in a document somewhere that people will forget to reference. There's something that they can just remember as they're working, and it makes it easier to make sure that it's adopted throughout your organization. And if you'll notice, And if you've been paying attention, you'll see that the first message, the challenge that your audience faces, and the last message, your impact, essentially make up the job to be done. So if you work on the job to be done, you'll have 2 of these messages already done. And then the second and third message is really where, you get to talk about yourself. So I hope that I have inspired you to summon your inner Charlie Kale and break free, let go of these ways of working and marketing that are no longer working with us, and explore the possibilities of job to be done and the 4 message narrative structure. So thank you so much. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Amazing. Lee, thank you so much. That was so beautiful, like so fun, so interesting. And I love how you always, have us question the status quo and see the new perspectives and come up with these inspiring new ideas. So amazing. I want to first open it up to everyone. Any questions that they want to bring up. I do have a couple good questions that came in, but I want to open it up here first. And Joy, thank you. Awesome. Thanks, Joy. Have a great day.
I have a question.
Yeah.
And thank you, Lee, for that presentation. It was very, very informative. Are there any brands out there that are doing JBTD really well that you would recommend that we follow and just keep tabs on?
Yeah, this is an agonizing question for me because I wish I had a bunch of examples to share, and unfortunately I don't. I think the Rough Day Wines is one that really stood out to me because it was so it just really dramatized in a very distinct way, kind of, okay, they're talking to me in my language, not in the company's language. I think I have run into maybe one other, but I think instead, because I feel like honestly and depressingly, I guess, that there aren't a lot of examples to point to, it's really more the I guess I would ask you just to kind of be on the lookout and kind of note when you see a company and ask them, are they talking to me through the language of their business? Or are they talking to me through, the language of what I care about and what I'm trying to do? So for example, in the patio furniture case, and that's, one ad campaign, you could tell they were getting there. And the funny thing is I shared that on LinkedIn and the creative team saw it somehow, amazingly. And basically they revealed, without my even asking, that in fact, what happened was the client is like, no, we got to talk about the products. So I think the clients and the brands are kind of their own worst enemy, because I have no doubt that creatives will kind of come with these amazing ideas around audience insights, and they're kind of battling with this need to talk about the products. So it's unfortunately, I don't have an easy response of saying, yes, these brands are doing an amazing job, follow them. It's more to be on the lookout to see kind of the kind of individual cases where it might pop up, and the tensions that can emerge even in a single ad between the desire to speak to the audience in their terms versus talk about themselves.
And Lee, kind of like a follow-up question to that in a way. One question is, how can I get buy-in to use these approaches at my company?
Yeah, I think change can be really hard, especially if you're in a large bureaucratic company. And a lot of it depends on the specific kind of culture that you have. But I think oftentimes when you're introducing something new, an easy way to kind of get buy-in is to say, I'm just going to experiment with this. you know, kind of low stakes experiments, could be a social media campaign, you know, whatever the area is that you feel like leadership pays the least amount to, versus like a big paid media campaign, which there's a lot of money on the line. Or it might be, you know, hey, we're going to A/B test some emails, and I'm going to write one kind of using this logic and another using the way we've always done it. So any way you can introduce it so that the risk is low if it, you know, for whatever reason doesn't work. Because I think once you have success, then it becomes much easier to start incorporating it throughout marketing.
Perfect. And one more, interest of time, we have a few more minutes, but really quickly, if you're able to, how do I incorporate the outcome of these approaches into my marketing in a practical way, for example, on my company's website?
Right. So I think a lot of these tools like personas or messaging frameworks, you're like, great, we have this, but then what do we do with it? So, I mean, what's great, I think, about Job to be Done and the 4-message narrative structure is they reinforce one another. So you can see how they kind of play into each other. So the job to be done is literally built into the 1st and 4th message. So what I like to do is the 4th message, for example, is a message of transformation. So that can literally be the headline on your homepage. So if you go to most homepages, I don't care what kind, if you're B2B, B2C, government, nonprofit, association, whatever, I guarantee you the headline will be, we are great. We are the #1 provider. Our products are better than anyone else. Or let me talk to you about my product. Like, let me tell you this cool feature that we have. So that is information that someone does not need when they first get to your website. You need to hook them immediately. So if you can use that message of transformation, that 4th message as the headline, that's kind of like saying, have a vacation in your backyard, right? That is attention grabbing. Like, I don't even care that you sell furniture. You've got me. I am in. I want to learn more. So basically, you think about how can I take those messages and weave a story for someone so that I get their attention, and then I start giving them more information based on, you know, that promise of transformation. So like even on the About Us page, for example, in which, you know, people love the About Us page because we get to talk all about ourselves and our wonderful executives and whatever it is. So again, does anyone care? Probably not. But if you lead with, I feel your pain, like I understand the struggle you're facing. This is, instead of make the about not just a description of who you are and what you do, but make the about your perspective on your audience's problem. Now that is something worth reading. That is really helpful to me because I see how you're different. I see that you care about me. And then you can, you know, you've stated the problem, you've stated your perspective on it, and then you can say, and this is what we do about it, which is, you know, your approach. That makes for a much more powerful About Us page than, we were founded in this year. We've been around, blah, blah, blah. Or, you know, another favorite, the timeline that talks about the different companies we've acquired. Like, how does that help me as your audience? That may matter internally at your company, but that doesn't matter to me.
So good. So good. Well, Lee, I hate to even have to end this. This is so great. This discussion, your presentation has been so lovely. Thank you so much. As a reminder to everybody, I'm going to be sending out a post-event email, so keep an eye out for that. That'll have the recording for us and also a short survey just for us to, we always love hearing your feedback on and how we can better serve you. So keep an eye out for that. And we look forward to seeing you at another AMADC event in the future. Lee, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks to everyone.
Yeah. And thank you everyone for being here. It was really lovely to be with you today.
Great.